and welcome to The Zest, the official podcast of Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Ranieri, and today's guest is a filmmaker, director, and producer who has worked on projects including Charlie's Angels, I Feel Pretty, The OC, Terminator Salvation, Supernatural, and so much more. In the beginning of his career, he created more than 50 music videos for artists such as Smash Mouth, Sugar Ray, Sublime, and The Offspring. Now he's taken on a new chapter, overseeing the beloved Lido Theater here in Orange County. Thank you so much for being here today, Joseph McG, famously known as McG.
What's up? I'm so glad to be here, Chelsea. How are you?
So great. I had so much fun researching you and learning about all of the incredible things you've done over the course of your career. I'm such a huge fan of all of your movies and TV shows. And I have to say, I'm very excited to watch Love Hard and The Holiday once again this coming Christmas season.
They play well over the holidays. Good for you. Yeah, it's fun to watch those.
They're so funny. And my husband loves them too. So I'm like, everybody loves them. Well, so to jump in, you were born in Michigan, but you grew up in Newport Beach. So what brought your family out to Orange County?
My dad is a scientist and worked for a pharmaceutical company called the Upjohn Company, which was based in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I was born in that brief little window. And then that company said, hey, we want to have a footprint out in California. And they sent him out here to sniff around. And he rented a car and he found his way down to Newport Beach and went, that's it. This is the place. I think he just looked at the opening of, where Big Corona is with the wedge and that beautiful shot from the beginning of Gilligan's Island and went, you got to be kidding. This is out there. And he moved us out. So I grew up in the 70s in Newport Beach. I went to East Bluff Elementary School, Lincoln Middle School, Corona Del Mar High School, the whole thing. And the rest is, as they say, history. So I really regard Orange County as my home. And I feel like it courses through my veins. I love it.
Yeah. I actually didn't know that the Gilligan's Island shot was from Newport.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So how did you get the nickname McG?
Well, my name's Joseph McG, but we didn't have too much dough, when I was born. And there were two other Joes in the house, my uncle Joe and my grandpa, Joseph McG. And it was my mother's mother, my grandma, whose last name was McG, said, call him McG. And that was it. From the day I was born, I've been called McG, and everybody thinks it's some, self-prescribed hip hop nickname. And nope, it's just really McG. You can look at my second grade photograph at East Bluff Elementary and it says McG. And that's it. And everybody's like, well, what should I call you? I'm like, I've never been called anything but McG my whole life. If somebody said, hey, Joe, I wouldn't know they were talking to me. So that's how I got McG. And I've been apologizing for it ever since.
Wait, I love that your second grade photo has McG on it. That's so cute.
Oh. And third and fourth and all the way. And everybody who knows me would look at you sideways too and go, yeah, that's McG. What? They've only ever known me that way.
Wow. Well, okay. So growing up, you were friends with Mark McGrath, who was the lead singer or is the lead singer of Sugar Ray. So how did that friendship start?
Mark and I met in third grade and we've been best friends ever since. I hung out with him last night. We never sort of went through a period where we were anything less than best friends. We were always into music. We did our best, in athletics. He was a good basketball player. I played tennis mostly, but we played everything together and we were terrible surfers. So we would go down to River Jetty and Blackie's and we'd be too scared to go out into the surf and we'd go to Pier Records and we'd just go even deeper into music and the arts. And that was that. I mean, when the time was right in sort of the end of middle school, right into high school, we started being in bands and he was always infinitely better looking and more charismatic than I was. So I quickly found myself on this side of the camera instead of that side of the camera. A classic face for radio, Chelsea, as they say, is what I am. So, that was it. And we just sort of blazed that trail together. And, I was pre-med in college and I was going to go to med school because choosing a life in Hollywood didn't seem viable. But again, I was best friends with Mark and I'm like, dude, you're not the greatest singer in the world, but you're terribly handsome. We should make a video. And I knew Gwen Stefani out in Irvine, and I knew the guys in Sublime in Long Beach, and I knew Zach De La Rocha, the singer of Rage Against the Machine, and also in Irvine. And I just said, wow, what if we brought this music of Orange County to the world? And that was that, because there was a guy named Rick Rubin who did that with a company called Def Jam, who was going to NYU, and he brought the Beastie Boys and Run DMC and LL Cool J, brought hip hop to sort of the mainstream, and I wanted to be like him, so tried to do that, and we made a music video, and I hid it in a pizza box on a green video cassette tape, which you wouldn't even remember. You're so young. And sent it to all the heads of the record companies all over the world. And in New York, the heads of Atlantic Record opened this pizza thinking it was a pizza. And it was a video cassette, and they thought it was a little bit amusing. And they put the video in, and 30 seconds into it, they go, sign those guys. And that was it. Sugar Ray got a big record deal, and we made that record, and I kept making the videos and just kept on trucking.
Yeah. And I like when I was reading about you, you had like a very specific take and eye to these music videos. So what would you say that your outlook was on these?
Well, I grew up in a house full of music where my sister was listening to disco, blasting out of her bedroom. My brother was listening to Led Zeppelin, rock and roll blasting out of his. My dad was listening to jazz. So I was always listening to music. And I think I have a little bit of that condition, synesthesia, where you hear something and you see it visually. And I was always, even before MTV, I was always acting out my favorite songs. I would say like, oh, this is sort of the corresponding visual to what I'm hearing. So with the advent of MTV and the ability to go out there and shoot, I just took everything I grew up watching, everything from The Sound of Music to Taxi Driver to The Godfather to 16 Candles, and just kind of put it in a blender and came up with my music video style. And it seemed to resonate with people who were watching MTV in the 90s. So that was kind of it. And, I had fun writing the songs with the Sugar Ray guys. Every Morning Fly, Someday, was really fun collaborating. But making records takes a long time. Whereas making a video, you get a call on a Tuesday from, Aerosmith, and you shoot the video on the weekend, and then it's on MTV the week after that. I really appreciated the immediacy of that. So I kept shooting videos for all the guys in Korn who moved down from Bakersfield to Huntington, so that was an Orange County thing as well. Then Cypress Hill, then, Smash Mouth and Bare Naked Ladies and, all those bands from that period, Wyclef, and just kept going and developing my style. So that was a good training ground.
God. And then you transitioned into commercials as well. So how did that transition happen?
Well, there was a guy named McG Drexler who was responsible for The Gap. And this is at the end of the 90s, right around the turn of the century. He's like, I really want to reinvigorate the brand. And he came to me and Spike Jonze and a few other directors of my era and said, what can we do? And I'm like, we should get a bunch of good looking boys and girls with very little makeup, put them in white t-shirts and khaki pants and have them dance around on a white soundstage. And it'll just be very pure and aspirational. And, people want to get involved. And it worked. Those were those commercials where everybody was just sort of dancing, on the white background in the Gap ads. And it helped invigorate that brand. And that led me to Drew Barrymore, who I didn't meet through film. I met through rock and roll because she was dating the guitar player in Courtney Love's band. And she'd be out and about the streets of Hollywood when, I moved up to Hollywood in the mid 90s, ran into her, and she had the rights to Charlie's Angels.
Unreal. So I absolutely love this story. Do you kind of mind going into how she stood up for you and wanted you to do it?
Oh, well, she and I got along, right away, and all the serious directors in town had passed on Charlie's Angels. Nobody knew what to do with it. And I'm like, I want to do it. And she goes, well, I want it to be just like your videos, really colorful and positive and exciting and action packed and about girls who have each other's back and never, get into cat fights or anything like that. I said, yeah, that sounds like a great take. And let's get, the guys from Hong Kong to do the wire work. And they're going to fight super cool, like a, Hong Kong Kung Fu movie. And we just had so much fun with it. And she took me into Sony and I pitched the movie and, they wanted nothing to do with me. Literally their arms are crossed and they're just looking at me and shaking their heads like, no way. And Drew puts her arm around me. He's like, yeah, way. I'm the strongest person in here. And if this guy does it or I'm not going to do it. Damn. And, it was just a example of how powerful she is and was. And we went for it. And I almost got fired off that movie, 8 or 10 times because they'd look at the dailies and be like, what the hell is this thing? It's so colorful and weird and musical and everybody's always laughing and dancing and having fun. And I go, it's all going to come together in the end. And fortunately it did. And it wasn't until we tested it in front of an audience that they went, okay, we got something here and let me go.
God, that gives me chills. Okay. So Charlie's Angels is obviously played such a big role in pop culture at the time. Do you have any favorite memories that you can share about that era?
Well, just the fun of working with Drew and Cameron and Lucy and, Bill Murray at the time was, it was breathtaking because the guy was a hero of mine. I grew up on Saturday Night Live and, all his big movies, Stripes, Ghostbusters, Meatballs. So the opportunity to be working with him as a peer was stunning to me. To this day, I have to pinch myself. So that was incredible. And then Tim Curry, who was in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then the bad guy in the movie was Sam Rockwell, who came in pink sunglasses and was dancing all around. And now you can see him on the internet. There's collections of him coming on to, Jimmy Fallon and what have you. And they always dance together. And I'm just like, yep, that's my guy, Sam. And he's obviously a big superstar. And the rest is Hollywood history.
God, that scene is iconic when he's dancing. It's the coolest villain scene I've ever.
He earned it. He's great. He's great.
Yeah. Well, under your production company, Wonderland Sound and Vision, you've also made films like Terminator Salvation and This Means War, which I'm also a huge fan of. So what draws you to a project and how do you pick the stories you want to tell?
Well, I mean, you just mentioned Terminator, which I had the opportunity to work with Christian Bale and had the good fortune of James Cameron saying, yeah, man, go for it. So you didn't have to ask me twice. And we made that film. And then same thing with This Means War was Reese Witherspoon, who I've always looked up to. She has such an incredible mind. She's so powerful on screen and such an interesting business person. And, you know, the chance to work with her and put Tom Hardy in that movie was amazing because he was just sort of hot off the boat from England and nobody knew him over here in America. That was awesome. And, you know, Kevin Costner on 3 Days to Kill, sort of living with Kevin Costner in Paris is, you know, an incredible thing. Is two American kind of cowboys, didn't speak French and doing our thing. And now I just finished a movie with Chris Pratt, which interesting guy, obviously Jurassic Park, Guardians of the Galaxy, Garfield. And he was actually on the OC. So we would nickel and dime each other and kid about his character on the OC. He was Summer's boyfriend, Shay, when they went to college. Yeah.
You're right. I remember that. Wow. That's so cool. I love that full circle moment. Well, in addition to film, you mentioned the OC. You've created TV shows like the OC and Supernatural, which continue to attract new audiences even today. So what do you think makes a story stand the test of time?
Well, the OC is an outsider story. And, you know, I grew up, I was very, very slight. I graduated high school. I was probably 5'2", maybe 5'3". Never saw a day in high school without braces. I was friends with all the popular people, but I was kind of a joke, kind of sidekick class clown. And then my best friend, Mark, was starting to get real good looking. So the girls would come talk to me to try to get access to Mark. And, you know, that's kind of the point of entry of the Seth Cohen character.
I was going to say
the OC, because I grew up with these strapping water polo dudes and the good looking surfers. And, you know, they were all sort of like shirtless and tan and hulking and went to, you know, USC and played for the national water polo team and everything else. And that was just kind of that point of entry of Seth. And I bonded with Josh Schwartz, who created the show, because he's like, I'm from Providence, Rhode Island. And I went to USC with those guys. And we kind of giggled. And that was that for Seth. And yeah, so that was that point of entry. And I just think the underdog story and the brotherhood story of what, you know, Ben McKenzie's character and Adam Brody's character got up to. And then we had lightning in a bottle with Misha. And then, of course, you know, Summer's one line in the pilot was, ew. And Rachel Bilson just took that and ran with it. And she was too good to be denied. So that worked out well. And we sexualized the parents, you know what I mean? Which was not done. Like if you look at 90210, it was like the kids and then the parents were out here. And we said, no, in Newport Beach, and this is sort of Real Wives of Newport Beach and that kind of idea, this preceded that, was no, people stay very sexualized into their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond in Orange County. Mm-hmm. And they're hell bent on looking good and taking care of their bodies and getting in and out of Soul Cycle and Equinox and what have you. And we reflected that in the show, and I think people responded.
Oh my God, that's such a good point. Wait, also, how did you guys find Adam Brody? I feel like I remember this cool story behind it.
Well, he came in and he was the first guy we cast. We just sort of knew we had it with him. He was a big music fan. So he felt like the third leg of the tripod with me, Josh, and then Adam. You know, we'd talk about Death Cab for Cutie and all these bands. And, you know, he sort of had our sense of irony and he could handle Josh's dialogue. And we're like, okay, you're it. And then he sort of became part of the team as we navigated casting the rest of it, which is a little bit silly and not done. But we were all so young. Like I was the old guy and I was 30.
What?
And yeah. And Josh was the youngest person, I think, in history to ever be a showrunner. He was like 27 years old. And, you know, in charge of tens of millions of dollars, if not 100 or more million. And that's just a big responsibility for a 27-year-old guy. And yeah, we hitched our wagon to Brody and the rest is history. Then he got Mr. and Mrs. Smith and we were all like, wow, man, you really are going all the way. Next thing you know, he's in a scene with, you know, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. You're like, okay, here goes Brody.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that so much. Well, beyond just, film and TV, you've also played a part in revitalizing the local restaurant scene with spots like A Restaurant and CDM Restaurant, which I'm both obsessed with. What drives your passion for these ventures?
I look at it all as storytelling. I mean, A Restaurant started, 17 or 18 years ago. It was called the Arches. And it's where we all used to go, you know, like, ooh, 8th grade graduation. Let's go to the Arches. It's fancy. And you know, it just became available. And I'm friends with the family, the Wilder family that owns the property. And I said, hey, we'd like to take a shot. And I really wanted it to be an honest reflection of the true fabric of Newport Beach and therefore Orange County, where, Mike Ness, who's in Social Distortion, Mark, who's in Sugar Ray, those guys were involved. But then, old school kind of deep pocketed commercial real estate guys like Scott Burnham and Phil Belling, they were involved too. Bob Hurley was a day one investor of, the Hurley surfwear brand. And it was a very, very eclectic group. And I think that's been the key to our success, is that everybody feels like, oh, this is my joint. I belong here. So we really wanted to lean into an honest reflection of everybody who lived around town. And we wanted the best food possible and the best service. And perhaps most importantly, the best vibe, where you feel like you're always welcome. And it's always a good idea for Chelsea and McG to go, let's just go to A. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
We did that for my mom's birthday after we duffied in the harbor. And we were like, let's just go to across the street. And it was my first time there. And the vibes you're so right. Like so high. It feels like a party. It's so fun. Everyone's so welcoming. Like it's great in there.
Well, that's a good 1-2 punch. Jumping off a Duffy and ducking into A is one of the best afternoon evenings you could ever have.
Yeah, it was the best. Okay, well, let's talk about Lido Theater. So you've brought this iconic space back to life. What made you want to take over its operations, and what do you have planned for its future?
Well, I mean, the Lido Theater is where I grew up going to movies, that and Edwards Big Newport. I spent the night out there to see the Star Wars movies, and I saw Train Spotting and Midnight Run and all these movies down at the Lido. And I just have such fond memories of it. And then it's just kind of been in and out of being open for, I don't know, since maybe 2000. And the guy who owns the property is Fritz Duda, who's a really good Newport guy, important guy that's spared no expense restoring it to its original intention. And we're also thankful that he did it, that he and I, became friendly, and it just seemed to make sense. Like, here's this guy, McG, who's from Newport, who kind of went up to LA and made a mark in the movie business. What a natural fit for me to do the programming and just kind of run the theater on behalf of Fritz. So we partnered on that. We're putting a restaurant next door where Woody's is that, will be a reflection of kind of all the great things that Woody's has done, along with, what A's up to. And that Lido walk that's in between the theater and Woody's is going to get activated to be like a nice spot where you can get coffee and handmade ice creams and, stuff like that, that should be really fun, because Lido's just so agreeable now to go down there and walk around. So Nobu's down there and Zinke, and, you can get candles at Le Labo and buy a bag at Claire V. It's just Jenny Kane. The whole thing is awesome.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wait, thank you so much for doing this for the community. I can't wait for that. That sounds amazing.
Well, that's the idea. It's just, I wanted to really give back to the community. It's just, everybody loves the Wedge. Everybody loves the tower at Newport Harbor High School. Everybody loves the crab cooker. We just have a few precious things that just need to be preserved that made Newport great. And certainly the Lido Theater is part of that short list. So it's a gift to the community, designed to have everybody nodding up and down, looking at the marquee going, wow, they're doing the benefit for Hogue. Wow, the John Wayne Cancer thing. Wow, I love the Sound of Music sing-along. Oh, the Righteous Brothers are going to play. Sugar Ray is going to play. It's music, it's comedy, it's movies, it's a gathering spot, and it's designed to reflect the beating heart of the town.
If Sugar Ray plays, I will be first in line. That sounds so fun.
I'll tell Mark. Chelsea's waiting for a gig, dude.
Yes, very much so. Well, is there anything that you want listeners to keep an eye out for in the coming year? You mentioned the movie with Chris Pratt.
Yeah, I just finished that movie with Chris Pratt. It's called Way of the Warrior Kid. It's kind of like Rudy or Karate Kid. It's a big guy, little guy movie where Pratt's a Navy SEAL who gets hurt and has to go live with his sister who's a single mom, has a 12-year-old kid who's getting bullied, and he's got to learn to stick up for himself. And these two men heal each other. And it's just kind of really just irrefutable good advice. It's not red. It's not blue. It's just kind of like, you know what? You should eat well. You should do your homework. You should make your bed in the morning. These are just irrefutably good things to do as you learn to, invest in yourself, respect your elders, and do some push-ups. You know what I mean? And good things are going to happen. I mean, in the words of McConaughey, it's kind of like you'll find yourself catching some green lights if you get those ducks in a row. So the movie's about that, and it's funny. It might just make you cry. And they don't always turn out great. This one turned out great.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm hooked. I can't wait to see that. Well, we're coming to the end of our time, but before I let you go, we have 3 final questions that we call the Thoughtful 3. So first, have you ever struggled with self-doubt? And if so, do you have any advice for how to overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I turned 15, I started having really, really intense anxiety attacks. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know where they were coming from. And it was very shameful and it was very emasculating. And I ended up becoming really agoraphobic. I mean, I was supposed to go to USC and I ended up going to UCI because I was just too, anxious to wiggle up the 405 and go to USC. Mm-hmm. And I was really crippled by this stuff. And, I made all those records and all those videos without ever leaving, kind of the Los Angeles basin. I certainly couldn't get on an airplane. And, I made the Charlie's Angels movies without ever leaving town, which is impossible. You could never do that today. And then when I finally got on Superman, they're like, we're going to make this movie in Australia. And I tried to tell the heads of Warner Brothers, I go, I can't fly to Australia. They're like, come on, you're McG. You can fly to Australia. Just get over it. And I tried to tell them. And the day came when I had to go to Australia on the Warner Brothers, private jets, and Gulfstream, getting ready to go down there. One guy on the manifest, me, the pilot standing at attention, and I couldn't get on the plane. And it was humiliating. And I got fired that night off Superman, biggest movie in the world at the time. And I kind of just put my tail between my legs and limped into UCLA and saw these two women who help people with problems of anxiety and agoraphobia. And I just started putting one foot in front of the other. And I rented a Gulfstream from a guy that had one in Santa Barbara. And I just slept on it and just got used to being inside the fuselage. And then we'd start taxiing around. And then one day I looked at the pilot and gave him a little nod and he took off. And we flew from Van Nuys to Camarillo, which is like 7 miles in a plane built to go 700 miles an hour and fly around the world. But it gave me confidence to keep going. And until one day I, left LAX heading east and I returned from the West. I'd flown around the world. And, I then was ready to go back to Warner Brothers. And I said, hey, I want to make this movie, We Are Marshall. Me and Matthew McConaughey want to make it. And it's about a plane crash because I really wanted to slay that dragon. And they said, all right. And they let me do that. And I've been flying ever since. I met my wife in France. And I never try to go more than 2 weeks without getting on a plane so I can stay sharp and, keep that whole mindset at bay. So, I guess my advice to anybody out there is I tried to hide my shortcomings and I wouldn't recommend doing that. Everybody knows anyway. Mm-hmm. So wear it like armor and no one can ever hurt you for having any shortcomings. And it'll become your superpower. And for those of your listeners who experience fear or have been afraid, know that when you're diving into that fear, you're closer than you've ever been to achieving your goals. And you got to learn to live in that fear and be comfortable with it because you're not going to hyperventilate. You might hyperventilate, but you're not going to die. You're not going to have a heart attack. And it's self-regulating and you got to push through because on the other side of that is the freedom you seek to achieve your dreams and have that glorious life you've always wanted. So that would be my advice. Just don't waste time.
Yeah. God, thank you for sharing that. That's so inspiring.
That's the truth. I walked that path. And Drew knew on Charlie's Angels when we got invited to go to Buckingham Palace to show the movie to Will and Harry and, Prince Charles and what have you. And, Mark and those guys knew when they had to go to New York to sign the record deal. And I'm like, ooh, I'm sick. And they all kind of knew and they were cool. And then it just blew up in my face on the Superman thing. But it was just kind of like a rock bottom moment that you need, I think, sometimes where you have to face the facts and get your act together.
Yeah, definitely. Well, how do you define success now versus how you did when you were first starting out?
I still am very interested in, the music I create, the stories I tell, the movies, the television, what have you, the restaurants, touching the public and the souls of a million strangers. I think that's true success because I'm so deeply invested in my friends and those who I know. But wow, what if you can create something that didn't exist? And then, I mean, you just said that you really enjoyed Charlie's Angels. We don't know each other. So it fills my bucket to know that, wow, that put a smile on your face and put a dance into your step. That's a wonderful feeling when you can touch the souls of strangers. So to me, that's always been the North Star of success. And, you just got to believe and keep going and, try to create the best art you can and do a little good along the way. It's just my style.
Oh, I love that. Well, lastly, what is one key takeaway you hope listeners get from our conversation?
Never go out in the rain with your socks on.
Meaning?
Nothing. It's just as bad as
interesting.
No, I think the idea is just to, even if there's no reason to believe you can make something happen, take a deep breath. And I was always inspired by, I think it was Cortez who, it's a kind of a dark story. I think he came from Spain to invade Mexico. So that's a little sad. But he burned the ships, meaning like, we're either going to win this or we're going to die trying. There is no plan B. And I'm just a big fan of like, burn the ships. Like if you want to be a writer, go all in on being a writer. If you want to be an on-air personality like you, go all in, build the zest, do your thing. And if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a poet, if you want to be a professional basketball player, go as hard as you can. You'll find out a lot about yourself, provided you left it all on the stage and did everything you can. So I'm just a big, big believer in going all out to pursue your dreams. And you may achieve them and you may not, but nonetheless, that journey is the thing, and it'll fill your bucket.
God, thank you so much. This was such an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm a big fan of what you've got put together. I love, Orange Coast Magazine. We carry it down at A Market. And cheers. I'm delighted to be a part of it and just love Orange County.